What's up, guys? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com back with another episode of the North American Weed Tour podcast, episode 61. Today, I'm joined by special guest Brie Malarkey of Brie's Botanicals down in Oregon. How are you doing today, Brie?
I'm great. It's a beautiful day and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, to get this started, we usually talk about people's kind of history and origin story around the plant and the plant being cannabis. You obviously deal with a couple different plants that we'll get into a little bit later, but I'm just curious
Yeah.
kind of your history around the cannabis plant.
Wow, around the cannabis plant specifically. My husband was growing it for himself and for my mother, who has restless leg syndrome, and another woman who had cannabis back in the medical days. And it was just amazing the relief that each of them had from different plants. And back then, there wasn't a lot of testing. So I was just really excited to learn about it and, why did this one work for one person and not the other? And really kind of just wanted to match modern science and technology and diving into the plant and the phytoconstituents of the plant with wives' tale and lore. I mean, this plant's been used for 2,000 years and everybody knows it's great. So why did we demonize it? And what can we learn about it today? So that's kind of how I fell in love with the plant.
That's awesome. And a conversation that has continually came up, not even a question, but a topic that's continually came up on some of these last couple of episodes is just the awe of this plant and how it affects everybody so differently. And I think when you look
Mhm.
at traditional pharmaceuticals or any chemical or plants or even herbs, different things interact with people in different ways and provide different effects. And I think that's something that's so beautiful about this plant. How important is, I don't necessarily want to call it experimentation, but do you feel like for the average consumer or patient, like trying and really finding what works for them?
Oh, absolutely. It's one plant and we're one human, but no, every body is different. Every aspect of who we are and our background, and same thing with the plant, whether it's marijuana or it's hemp or it has a lot of terpenes or it has a lot of this cannabinoid or it has a lot more of these other plant waxes and lipids, it's unique and different. And so I think we as humans always want to narrow it down. What is exactly the aspect of this plant and then my body and then mix and match it. And that's kind of the allopathic way, right? Here in Western medicine, as we try to treat the symptoms or we try to narrow it down to one single molecule. And that's what makes something a pharmaceutical. It's We've used plants for a long time to try to find the derivative of a specific plant and then how can we mass produce that and manage the dosage of that one chemical. For me, as a whole plant herbalist, I really believe in whole plant herbalism and really using traditional extraction methods to kind of strip everything we can from the plant and bottle all that herbal goodness for people because it works throughout our whole modality. I think this might deviate from your question a little bit, but when you like narrow something down to a single molecule, then maybe now you need this pharmaceutical to address this side effect, and now you need this
Mm,
pharmaceutical for that side effect. What versus something working on your whole body. So yeah, every human's different. So starting low, starting with a small amount, being in a safe place, kind of monitoring yourself and your body's reaction is really key for finding that balance for what you need in your body.
absolutely. And you even at your guys' stores, Breeze Botanicals, you said, I can't remember the term that you use them, but they're not bud tenders. What do you classify those employees as?
Well, at our stores, we operate them as herbal apothecaries, and we're a bioregional apothecary. So we only carry medicinal herbs and plants that can be cultivated or wildcrafted here in Southern Oregon. So we call it 100-mile healing. So we've got things like chamomile and lemon balm and ashwagandha. And so our associates, I kind of joke, they're leaf root bud tenders. And we embrace cannabis, and obviously we're looking for the flowers and the buds, but maybe with white willow bark, or we're looking for um, lemon balm leaves or the roots of marshmallow. So we've got lots of different medicinal herbs that we're offering to the public. Obviously, cannabis is the power plant. It is the superstar in the plant kingdom, and that's why I wanted to have it be a part of our apothecary.
And so, how do you go about educating your staff to just be aware, because obviously you guys delve in a couple different plants, and I'm sure there's just a lot of different variables there. How does your staff kind of stay up and acclimated on all the different things that you guys offer?
Sure, that's a great question. That's been a challenge over the years because everybody gravitates to plant medicine for different reasons. I'm a compounding herbalist. I love cultivating herbs and plants and then making medicine out of them, but I'm not a clinical herbalist. So for the first few years we were open, we had a clinical herbalist on staff at each store. And then we would try to hire people that were herbal medicine students or people that were interested in it. And we had some people that really specialized in cannabis. They love cannabis, they're drawn to the plant, and then they want to deep dive and learn about the other plants. So, the clinical herbalist and I, over the years, have developed training programs and content to onboard people. We hire for great, amazing people, good work ethic, compassionate folks that want to really help people on their journey with plant medicine. And we can develop the training program to support them. But we're really just the guides in helping people understand their own bodies and to understand the variety of medicinal herbs from Southern Oregon. Um, and and then we can recommend and help them find other resources in the community if they need a naturopath or a clinical herbalist outside of our stores to really help them go on a deep dive for their own healing.
Yeah, no, it's just at a traditional cannabis shop. There's so many new products and brands, and
Yeah.
different product SKUs coming on the market. Different ways of deriving cannabis oils. We've seen from distillate, shatter to distillate to resin to rosin. I mean, it's constantly changing. I'm sure in your world it's a lot. But I think something that's true, that remains true in cannabis, and I'm sure bleeds over to everything you guys do with the apothecary, is like people are passionate about this. Like cannabis is something that a lot of people are passionate about, and there's a big community around that. Is that something that you also see outside of that plant towards these other herbs as well?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was a little shocking to me as an herbalist, somebody who loves plant medicine. I mean, I was deep diving into other plants while my husband was really doing the cannabis thing, and I kind of melded it together. And it's been because of prohibition, I think herbalists and plant medicine folks have kind of said, no, not that plant. Don't judge me. I'm not cannabis. I'm not marijuana, right? I'm fighting for the rights of you know a regular plant to be accepted. And so now, so it was amazing to me in the beginning how many people in the herbal space had separated themselves for many years from marijuana or cannabis, right? And the people in the cannabis space, I think, for a long time have embraced plant medicine and loved the idea of blending herbs and plants. And oh yeah, you're not just a pot shop. You are actually, having all these other companion plants, and we understand biodiversity. I think a lot of, especially the old school growers here in Southern Oregon, live harmoniously off the land, and regenerative agriculture was just something they did. It wasn't a buzzword or living soil or no till. It was a lifestyle for many folks here in Southern Oregon. So I wouldn't say we experienced discrimination in melding the two worlds of kind of cannabis culture and herbalism, plant medicine. It was more um, just kind of showing people that they could live together, and cannabis doesn't have to be this big bad thing anymore. We're post prohibition here in Oregon. We can show that this beautiful power plant is a medicinal herb and does need to be on the shelf with other medicinal herbs. And guess what? They're all happy together. And herbal compounding with cannabis and bringing herbs together to support each other along with cannabis, it's beyond just terpenes. It's beyond just the aspects of the plant, but what are the other plants that can support it? And yeah, it's been beautiful to watch cultures change and public acceptance around the plant over the last 7 years that we've been doing this.
And so you guys are the first licensed recreational dispensary in the state of Oregon, or were, I mean, you are, I guess, still hold that title.
Yeah,
I don't think
there
anyone's
can
going
only
to
be one.
beat.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, my journey started in 2014 with Oregon medical marijuana patients, opening the apothecary and then embracing cannabis for medical patients. We were the very first to get a moratorium lifted here in Southern Oregon, helped write the ordinance for the city of Gold Hill, the first city that kind of took a risk on our kind, which I didn't know I was a kind until literally landlords would hang up the phone and say it would never rent to my kind. I'm like, what is my kind? I guess, all this vision of what cannabis meant. So we were the first to get a moratorium lifted, and then quickly realized in the first summer or two that I had to turn away a lot of people. There was a lot
Mm,
of regular citizens that didn't have medical cards that wanted to come in. They wanted safe access, and I had to turn them away. So I was really quick to want to be a part of being able to serve all adults who were making a choice about their body and not have to turn anybody away. And back in the early days of the medical program, it could take up to 90 days before a patient
mm.
could get approved to get a medical marijuana card. People were diagnosed with cancer and had to wait. People were in extreme pain and they had to wait for bureaucracy. They couldn't just come in. And so, yeah, getting a recreational license to me was about being able to serve all adults.
That's no, that's awesome, and I acclimate my personal journey. I never, even though I use cannabis for medicinal purposes, I never got a medical card because I was just, I don't know, the stigma. I was worried about being in a database or something. I don't know, back in the day. But obviously, I had
Absolutely. Yeah.
no issue getting access to cannabis. But I think that's such an amazing thing. And on that note, the stigma, and I think you alluded to it there a little bit as well. The stigma of cannabis and what prohibition brought about has been so crippling to just getting this industry started, even though there's this excitement. How have you seen that stigma change from the medical to shift to getting your rec license to now here we are, quite a bit, not quite a bit, but a little bit down the field into adult use cannabis?
No, great question. In the beginning, when I was presenting my business plan to the community and sharing with people at city council meetings and trying to get a landlord to take a chance on us, it was, Reefer Madness is in everybody's mind after how many years of brainwashing of being told that this plant is bad and evil and only bad guys do it because of prohibition, right? I mean, people that are lawbreakers and maybe there's crime around it, and that's what the news is sensationalizing. So when that's people's mantra, I really took it as my job to prove that this plant isn't bad. This plant is beautiful, and we can operate an upstanding business in the community. And I can show you that we can support the economic viability of the Rogue Valley. We can create living wage jobs. We can be a safe place for people to walk in and really experience the plant and not feel bad or dirty because of all the stuff they've been told about the plant. And it never was about the plant, it was about the construct that we here in the United States have made around the plant, right? And so now that we've been operating for a few years, people are coming in and saying, I'm really sorry that I stood up against you at City Hall, or I'm really
Mm.
sorry that I shook my fist at you and said that you were only going to bring drugged driving to town and that all our kids would be ruined and that real estate values would plummet, because none of that has happened. And I realized that humans are afraid of change, and it's my job to really show that it doesn't have to be bad. And so it's been really beautiful to watch. And as the pillars of prohibition fall across this country and other states get on board, I can have a little pride that maybe tourists have come to our stores and realized it's not the end of the world, or local citizens have called their family members, and kind of this ripple effect out there that it's just a business.
Mm.
And if you do it ethically, responsibly, and integrate it with your community, and you really truly care about consumer health and wellness, then it's all okay. And so, yeah, the paradigm has shifted in public acceptance because I think people are realizing it's not fear based. It doesn't have to be bad. Are there bad apples in any industry? Yes. But I don't think cannabis has any more than anybody else.
That's a great way of putting it. I think you're absolutely right. The stigma and what people have been told is, only been shown the negative things on cannabis. And I was just on another episode the other day. A lot of the non-negative things were very comedic and almost, mocked and made fun of cannabis. And
Yeah.
so in a way, although cannabis and comedy and laugh and the giggle is closely associated, it's like the only representation that the majority of the public had for so long is this really negative thing, or this like mockery, not taking yourself seriously. We didn't really have a picture in the mainstream of what cannabis looked like of just an average normal user. um, some of the things of being first, strategically for business are great. Being a first mover can be great, but it can also be challenging. So what are some of the obstacles that you faced in being, the first licensed store in your state, and just and I mean, I'm sure there's been quite a bit of challenges of being, being a test dummy for certain things, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I had my vision of what I wanted to open for my store with no others open in the state, right? So like, I'm interpreting the rules, coming up with a business plan. Kind of what do I want to do as an herbalist? I want to run these apothecaries. I want to focus on local. And like the term bud tender was coined in the industry. I didn't coin that. I never saw my employees as or my associates as bud tenders. Tipping is different. In an herbal shop, that's just what we do. We consult and we help guide people. We're herbalists, we're healers. So tipping is really more of a bartender or service industry type of thing, which was different than, where I was coming from. But consumers started like, where's your tip jar? Because other dispensaries, other retailers, that was the culture that was starting to form around dispensaries. And um, I think also staying true to our mission of supporting small family farms and craft artisan um, farmers and producers has been challenging because bigger brands are established in the state now, and bigger brands were coming into Oregon, and my mission and vision was to be a place that cared about health and wellness. I'm going to be a gatekeeper. We're going to make sure people are cultivating organically, which I still do, but we do need to carry some of the bigger brands because consumers want that. So being a retailer that carries more traditional or lower cost products, because those companies can scale and they can offer products at a cheaper cost, but also still having space in our store for the craft and artisan products, the people that care about quality ingredients. I mean, not that the bigger brands don't, but that are really putting their heart and soul into it. And being a place that really gives those people shelf space. And if my mission was to support small family farms, I also need to buy low in order to keep prices low for consumers that are using it mostly for medicinal purposes. So that balance between supporting farmers and giving them enough money that they can live, where raw materials are a commodity price, and ultimately farmers get the short end of the stick
Mm.
in any industry, right? It's the base that everything is built upon. And so keeping it real for farmers, supporting farmers, providing living wages and health benefits to our employees, but also keeping herbal medicine approachable for consumers, it's a challenging balance. So that's been kind of the biggest challenge for me, is staying true to my original mission and having a diverse product line for consumers that want lower price points, higher. Some people want quality. Some people are okay with artificial food coloring and white sugar in their gummies. Some people want the vegan alternatives. So kind of trying to balance all of that.
Absolutely, and something we're very passionate about over at Respect My Region is um, giving consumers a choice, but also giving consumers that education and transparency to know. A lot of people don't care what they put in their body. It's point and proof of what they eat or what they
Yeah.
drink on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But at least arming them with the information and knowledge to educate themselves if they so choose. And I love how you put, it is definitely important to show love to the craft, the people who are really able to put their heart and soul in these products, but also, price drives a lot of, drives volume in this market as a consumer packaged good, and larger scale productions or manufacturers are clearly able to get their supply chain and their costs down. When it comes to brands that people come into the store, what are some of the brand names that people come in, or cultivators that people ask for kind of by name? They might not necessarily be the best. It's not here or there to say they're the best or they're not. But what are some of those brands that are grabbing some consumer recognition in your area?
Well, it's been great to see that some of them are Oregon brands that were born in here and aren't multiple state operators yet. Like Oregrown makes some
Mm.
amazing dabs and grows some great indoor flower. Dr. Jolly's, great price point. Both those companies are out of Bend, Oregon. Uh, some local farms that we really like to support and give shelf space to: 54 Green Acres, Ananda Farms, Ohm Extracts. They've been there since the beginning, a family business as well, really cares about plant medicine and making a great product. but people come in and ask for big edible companies. Wild Lunchbox is now leaving Oregon, but that's a brand that a lot of people have asked for over the years. And it's just been interesting to see, as people come in, then maybe they're mostly in the Portland area and there's some brands up there, maybe that aren't down here. And uh, we get a lot of regulars and then people passing through. So a lot of tourists. And I think they're just excited, whatever we have on the shelf.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
There's definitely that aspect. It's been amazing to watch what Wild's done, out of Oregon. I think you guys get slept on. California's obviously sets the tone for the culture, and they do branding and celebrity at a whole nother level than
yeah.
anyone else. But if you look at a lot of, not a lot, but some of these major movers in terms of volume, you got Wild. Select started up there in Oregon. Buddy's brand is now scaled from Oregon down the coast. I think there's a couple other ones, but it's impressive to see some of these companies that start out as local or smaller Oregon companies really boom across the country. Something that's very unique, I think, about the Pacific Northwest in general is this craft. I don't know. We have like this craft mindset. We have craft consumers. We have a lot of craft goods. Do you think consumers, like on that point of consumers understanding, this might cost a little bit more just because it's, maybe hand watered, hand trimmed, right? It's more hands-on care, smaller craft grow. Do you think a lot of consumers care if it's a craft good or versus a commercial good, or do you think that's kind of a smaller consumer demographic?
I think in our stores for sure, because we gravitate towards that. Our stores operate like a wine store, with artisan music and an ambiance that's very earthy. And I think people really appreciate that. And it's education, right? If people think that the highest THC is the only level of quality that they know, like, because a gummy is just a gummy, right? And so the only thing that's going to make it different is THC. But then we have to educate them. Well, not all peanut butter is exactly the same. You've got Jiffy and you've got Adams, right? So what are you wanting for your body? And it's the same thing with gummies. Do you want these kind of ingredients or that? The THC level is only one portion of it. Do you want whole plant, full extract, or do you want an isolate or a distillate? And let's talk about that and educate you into the different extraction methods or what are in the plant. A customer will come in and say, that 1,000 milligram tincture from Sun God Medicinals was amazing and it was wonderful for me, but you guys were out one day, so we bought this other one and it did nothing for me, but they both had 1,000 milligrams. Why? And it's like, well, let's talk about that. And so I think it's kind of just education. I think you're right, though. In the Pacific Northwest, we have micro creameries, micro distilleries, micro breweries. We tend to vote with our dollars and we care about going to the farmers market and knowing where we're buying our foods from. And maybe not everybody, but there's a majority of folks here that kind of care about maybe not big corporate companies and small mom and pops and how can we support that. And I think that transcends into the cannabis space as well. At
Yeah.
least, our stores are a safe haven for people like that. So perhaps we see a lot more of those folks. But I'd like to think we could serve all people and that, everybody cares about maybe having a store that they trust as a gatekeeper, that we're not buying the cheapest weed on the market, that we have standards for our store in order to be in our store. We've been testing for all the cannabinoids and terpenes, and we don't allow any residual solvents, so we go above and beyond the state testing standards in curating our store with products for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's obviously a place for every product and every consumer in this space. As a personal consumer, I love, very quality craft. I care about what goes into it, but I'm also a nerd. I'm not necessarily the mass consumer in this space. What are some ways that you guys have laid out your store, whether it's labeling products or showcasing products, to help the consumer kind of guide them along the education path? Because there's obviously a lot to take in on this industry is being so new, and so many people's experience and education to this is so new outside of the stigma we were talking about earlier, is what they've been force fed most of their life. So how do you guys lay out the store, the consumer or patient process to just kind of help educate them and guide them along in their quest?
Yeah, a great question. When I first got into herbalism and plant medicine, it was really overwhelming. There are so many different options and trying to memorize. And, I'd go into a health and wellness store and it's just label after label after label and, 20 different fish oil pills or whatever. And, how do I know which ones have filler and this? So, in opening the stores, I really wanted to demystify herbs a little bit, make it a little easier for consumers to shop. We think based on why we walked in the door. Oh, I need help with sleep, or my grandmother has nerve pain, or oh, I'm having spasms. I have a seizure disorder. So I'm thinking of what is the symptom I want to fix for. And so people come in and they say, I am here for this. Anxiety and stress, mental health, right? So we kind of identified the six main reasons people come to an herbalist, and we color coded all the products in the
Mm,
store to help guide people. So some products may have three or four indicators on it. So a lot of nervines are medicinal herbs that really nourish the central nervous system. You might target it for anxiety and stress, but it has the side effect of being a muscle relaxant, right? Or some other things. So it's a dual purpose, and they're all usually very positive side effects. So in addition to less anxiety and stress, I'm going to have less muscle spasms and tension. So medicinal herbs and whole plant herbalism is, like I said, about nourishing your whole body and providing support to multiple body systems. So your primary reason for coming in might be anxiety and stress, but guess what? You might have some other relief as well. So with cannabis, we also do that. So that's why, if you remember, I really wanted to kind of meld modern science with lore. So we do all this testing that's just beyond the state testing. We have a panel of employees that have the really hard job of testing all of our products before we put them on the shelf.
mm.
So in addition to their feedback and all the test results, we can understand a little bit more of which strain we would guide people with, or what product for what symptoms or reasons the consumer came in the door. So, yeah, color coding everything based on our testers and analyzing the test results so that people can maybe have a better chance of finding the right product for them.
Yeah, I love that because it's a difficult thing, just back to that, the education in this space, it's so difficult. The average consumer, I mean, you touched on it earlier, like THC percentage. The average consumer buys off of THC percentage, which, you talk to anyone who's a really a nerd in this space, they don't look, that's like one of the last categories they look at when buying something. And it's something
Yeah.
that I feel like every store and every person is like so passionate about, but it's still communicating that to the consumer is difficult. And it's not consumers are, I commonly hear people say, oh, consumers are dumb. It's not that they're dumb. It's just there is no education around this, previous to the last few years. There is no education, and really the only people that are really diving in are within the industry. So it's very unique to hear that you guys have kind of set up your whole store and align these products in a way that just help connect things with the consumer, that I don't know, that simplify it and make it easier, because that's such a difficult thing in this space.
Yeah, we really see ourselves as their guide. It's them walking in the door. You're right. Cannabis is a gateway drug and a gateway to better understanding your own body. Because when you make that choice to say, you know what, these 15 different pharmaceuticals have been toxic for me. I am making this choice to walk through this door and I want to learn about my body. And it's a gateway to better understanding yourself. And you quickly learn that maybe you need some yoga in your life. You need to lay off the white sugar. Maybe you need more water, and that there's all these other different medicinal herbs that can work together and support you. So one of my greatest joys is when somebody comes in thinking, I just need sleep and I need the stoniest in the couch indica, right? And they end up walking out the door with some valerian roots, some hops. They start learning about the different terpenes like myrcene and its ability to help you with absorption. Or maybe we start having a discussion about the root cause of why you're not sleeping, what is happening at work, what is happening during the day,
Mm.
what are some different herbs and plants that maybe can support you during the day so you can let your body relax at night and get that crucial cell rejuvenation. And so helping guide people to also not be afraid to talk to their healthcare practitioner about the use of medicinal herbs, and not to be in a closet, and to let their doctors know that they're interested in holistic and natural, because there are drug herb interactions. There are interactions that can happen. And I think people now that the stigma of cannabis has diminished a little bit, Oregon regulators need to get on the bandwagon and stop allowing employers to fire people for cannabis use.
Mm.
And then people don't have to be in the closet so much. And once that happens, and pain management clinics allow certain amounts of opiates with cannabis, once those things happen, people can talk honestly with their doctors, then I think people can really have true health and wellness. But we still have people that are afraid and don't feel comfortable coming out to either their employers or their community because they feel bad and dirty, or they feel they'll be judged, or they won't get the proper health care they need in traditional channels because they're embracing plant medicine. And that's really the big challenge we as citizens need to really focus on now as the next step in legalization here in Oregon.
Man,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just tragic when people can't talk to their doctor or other people about their interest in herbs and plants and cannabis.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I've been a long time cannabis consumer, and it took a time, took a time for marking those forms. Yeah, I consume cannabis to finally
Yeah,
being like, yeah, I consume this much cannabis, and just
and I'm not
comfortably,
bad. And
yeah, saying
yeah,
it without feeling like guilty or shameful. Well, it sounds like I need to come visit the store with kind of my laundry list of my issues and get set right. So one of the things that you touched on was terpenes, and so I was not privy to anything about terpenes until I started visiting a lot of facilities and really diving in at a higher level in this industry, interviewing people, learning more about the plant. But obviously, that cannabis unlocked my knowledge and understanding of terpenes and how that relates to everything. So, how important are terpenes in the other herbs and plants you guys carry that aren't cannabis? What role do they play in those?
oh, that's a great question. I mean, we've known about essential oils and have done double blind peer reviewed studies on like linalool and lavender, right? We know that it can help with anxiety and stress relief. So we see linalool in cannabis, and then we can have an idea of how that can help us. So we understand clinically proven that walking in a pine forest, right, and being around the aroma of pine can also help with stress reduction. So
Hmm.
pining in cannabis, or humulene and myrcene is kind of really being those relaxing aspects of hops and other plants, and the old wives tale about eating a mango and allowing your body to absorb more nutrients. And so we've known about other botanicals and plants and how they activate the endocannabinoid system. Even physical exercise like getting a runner's high can is activating your endocannabinoid system. And cannabis is just a lock and a key in our own body with the CB1 receptors, CB2 receptors, and it's just been really great for people to, in the medical community, understand more about the human body and how plants and medicine, and even traditional pharmaceuticals work, right? Not traditional, but more modern pharmaceuticals work in our bodies as well. So
Yeah, the
yeah, I
terpenes.
think terpenes are amazing, and I've been having fun learning about those over the last 6, 7 years, and really working with patients and consumers when they came in, when I would see test results or what are the dominant either cannabinoids or other phytoconstituents that I'm seeing in the testing, and then working with patients. The feedback's all anecdotal, was not a scientific FDA approved study, but it's enough for me. I've worked with enough people to really believe in what people are reporting. And not all things work in the same people. So
Mhm.
big bodies, little bodies, women versus men, African descent versus European descent. All the different genetic markers of what makes up our bodies are going to change, kind of how we're absorbing whatever we're putting in our body or being affected by COVID or not, right? So I think there's so many different aspects of what our bodies let in, and plants are just part of that.
And how much has your education around terpenes kind of exploded with cannabis? Like again, because from someone you've been a little bit more into this, probably longer than me, in terms of the subject of terpenes. How much has cannabis and the legalization of cannabis kind of moved the needle forward on terpenes, or do you feel like it was already kind of prominent? I'm just late to the game and understanding just because I'm a cannabis nerd.
Well, I knew it was something I wanted to test. I worked with a lab in the early days that was just going to do basic THC, CBD, CBG testing, and we really worked to expand the panels. Great partnership there with Jeremy Sackett, one of the cannabis testing pioneers here in Oregon, and the terpene profiles, and then in my herbal compounding, bringing herbs together, doing profiling of the different terpenoids and other cannabinoids, like humulene in hops sometimes will present itself as THCA and can be misread. So, people understanding when you're testing a cannabis product that also has hops with it, how do we weave out the hops, humulene,
Mm.
so that we're really truly testing? And that's why you send something off to 5 different labs and you get 5 different test results. And that's then the challenging part is, everybody kind of getting standardization in testing. I knew about essential oils. I knew that that was a part of it, but really kind of diving into how that makes something more bioavailable for a body or kind of opens up the receptors and kind of how it all interacts together. You can have super high THC and feel like, oh, this did nothing for me. And then have maybe a 16% THC, but really high in some essential oils. And it's like, wow, that just knocked me out. I don't understand. And it's like, yes, I do understand. Let me tell you. And I think people come in and they're experts in their own field and they're busy. They lead busy lives. They're full-time
Mhm.
parents. They're struggling to live. Just like me way back in the day when I was getting into plant medicine, I'd go into these stores and it's like, oh my gosh, what do I buy? What do I get? And we're positioning our retail stores to be a place that not only is about cannabis, but all other medicinal herbs, but a place where our consumers don't have to know everything. We could just ask them some consultative questions and maybe help set them down a path to learning a little bit at a time as they go. Because it's tough to know everything about why this works and why that doesn't work. And there's no one shoe fits all in herbalism or in cannabis for every single consumer,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to it. And so one of the terms I want to revisit that I heard you, I think you said it once or twice earlier, is wildcrafted. So I have two-parter. One question is if you can explain that term to me because I'm unfamiliar. But then two is the importance of the Southern Oregon region because it's been a long it's not a secret that it's been a hot spot for cannabis, um, predating legalization. Northern California obviously gets a lot of the folklore and you know I don't know, they get a lot of the fame when you talk about growing cannabis, but I personally know Southern Oregon was putting out a lot of quality cannabis for a long time. So beyond just cannabis, but the importance of Southern Oregon for just cultivation, and then also if you could explain what wildcrafted means to
Sure.
me.
Yeah, I'll take cannabis first. We're up at the tip of the Emerald or Green Triangle here, and you're right. There's a lot of notoriety in Humboldt and Mendocino counties, but here in Southern Oregon and Jackson and Josephine County, our appellation, if you will, or our region, just grows cannabis really well. So, you think about Cabernet from the Bordeaux region of France versus the Cabernet from Napa, right? They're going to be distinct and different. So we grow cannabis really well here and low cost to produce. Sun grown, aka outdoor, can be beautiful. Back in the day when outdoor was synonymous with growing under trees, hiding from helicopters, yeah, it wasn't great. But once we could grow it out into the sun and be really open and cultivate it the way the plant needed to be cultivated, it is an amazing product and it has so flavorful and beautiful. And I think part of, at our stores, we carry 30 different strains. That's just it. That's all I need to have. And we do about 10 indoor and greenhouse and 20 sun grown. And that's because we do it well here. And I really want to give it its place and its space. Especially tourists will come through and be like, oh, I only do indoor. And that's fine. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to indoor that's great. But being able to grow something that was grown environmentally more sustainable with the sun as its power source, is beautiful. And we've done some experiments where we grew the same strain of Blue Dream at 5 different grow sites in the valley, and introduced them to different environmental factors like dry farmed or introduced a bug attack on one. And it was fascinating to me how we got 5 different
Mm,
test result profiles, not only in the cannabinoids that we're presenting, but the essential oils. So, you can really cultivate something for specific aspects of the plant. And that's been really interesting to watch. So we do that well here. And as far as wild crafting, so cultivating is I'm a farmer and I am growing rows of something, or I'm purposely growing something to harvest it, right? Wild crafting is going into the woods and finding something that's naturally
mhm,
growing and sustainably harvesting it for for whatever, whether you're a mushroom hunter and you're picking chanterelles or morel mushrooms. You don't want to take ever more than a third of the crop, because you always want to leave two-thirds for the natural environment, for the land to rejuvenate itself, or for the plant or the fungus species to repopulate. So same thing with like Oregon grapefruit. It grows really well in our forests, and we go out and you can harvest the Oregon grapefruit, or white willow bark, or usnea, which is a lichen, or other plants that maybe make more sense to harvest it sustainably via wild crafting versus cultivating it.
okay, that's super interesting, and I appreciate you sharing the only take the one third. I've not got
Yeah.
into mushroom hunting personally myself. I'm an avid farmers market picker, but that's something I'm
Let
looking
them
to
do
get in.
that. you
Yeah, well, I'm
you will
looking to get
appreciate
into it,
them.
but I obviously want to, pay respect to the environment of which I'm harvesting from. So that is, I just learned something right there. Um, so I know you guys obviously use the retail fronts and the stores as, not only an ability to sell and showcase locally grown cannabis, but also herbs and other plants. What are some other ways that you guys are able to give a platform for art and just local business as well through your retail locations?
Sure. Well, we are a vertically integrated company, so we do have our own family farm
Mm,
that we do showcase at the stores. Our farm is called Suna Ra Acres. They're the Norse and Egyptian gods of the sun, Suna Ra Acres. And we also have our own manufacturing company, Sun God Medicinals, and that's where we really make a whole bunch of products that blend the right phenotypes or cultivars of cannabis with other specific herbs for specific relief for consumers. And we make tinctures and topicals, different smokables, which we launched this year, which was really fun and exciting. Um, but in the beginning, in the very, very beginning of the day, beginning of the store, I also sold my farm fresh eggs and
mm.
our raw milk and other produce from other farmers, and then realized that that was just too much. I was just going to focus on medicinal herbs. So we do have like stained glass artists, soap makers, different t-shirt makers here from the valley, and sticker makers, just different kinds of artists that are around, cannabis and healthy living. Also, really giving space to local practitioners to have that business cards and help guide people to other health and wellness people in the valley. Because, like I said, cannabis a lot of times is people starting the path of better understanding their body, and sometimes they need other guides outside of our store folks. So,
And with you said these smokables. So you're talking about blending cannabis and other herbs into a smokable product.
yeah.
Can you break down what that looks like to me?
Sure. Yeah. Suncoa Medicinals, we've been making herbal smoking blends for years. We sell it as a 1 ounce package on our website, sungodmedicinals.com. And we ship to all 50 states. But here in Oregon, Sun God Medicinals also has a cannabis license, and we make products for Oregon dispensaries. And this last year, we introduced different blunts and pre rolls with cannabis, live resin, and keef, along with herbs for sleep, smokable herbs for sleep, or smokable herbs for anxiety and stress. We also have smokable herbs for transition, kind of really coming to center, like quitting smoking and other kind of things. So it's been really great to teach people that, yeah, you can smoke catnip and mullein and lavender and rose petals. And it can really, it's not just about the terpenes in the cannabis plant now, it's about all these other flavors and all these other medicinal qualities of these other smokable herbs. So it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but being able to get it in the blunt and have them be exactly the right potency and not poke through the papers. It was a fun trial process, but that's a fun product here in Oregon.
Yeah, we'll have to on another episode. We'll have to dive a little bit more into that
Yeah.
because that is definitely interesting. I don't know if I've seen that, or if I have, I haven't been put on game. I may have seen it, but I have not heard about anything like that. So that is super unique, and a great way for you to blend kind of both worlds of, you know, cannabis within this world of plant medicine and herbs.
Yeah.
What are some of the herbs or plants that I don't necessarily want to give you on here, like giving the general public advice, but like what are some of the ones that you feel are kind of in alignment with the everyday or regular use things that a lot of people could benefit from taking on a regular basis?
I think right now we as a society are stressed out. We are going through a traumatic time as a society going through this pandemic together. I think that anxiety and stress is just crippling to everybody. We don't know what's happening. There's new variants, right? There's
Mm.
people afraid of the common cold because they don't know is it COVID or not. I mean, there's just a lot of stress. So, I think of passion flower and skullcap and chamomile as being really centering herbs. Mixed with, just really nice, calming, but not too sedating cannabis or strain, whether it be hemp or marijuana, which I know your listeners know hemp and marijuana are the legal names for with THC or without, but it's really all the cannabis plant. Um, Being kind of high in linalool and pinene, I think that there's just some magical blends there that are just really balancing. And I think we need some balance right now as a society. I think we need to believe in ourselves again and know that we can collectively get through this and just be strong together. So.
Absolutely. And so beyond just coming down to one of your locations, where do you, and that, I mean, that's a fair point as well, but where do you recommend people start their journey of like understanding what some of these natural, elements and plants and herbs that can help impact their life? Where do you kind of recommend someone if they're curious about that, where do they start that journey at?
Oh my gosh. Well, my stores are located in Ashland and Gold Hill, Oregon, down in Southern Oregon. And, sungodmedicinals.com, we have herb education pages. People can click on there. A lot of transparency and trying to teach people about herbs and plants. So that's a good place to start. I personally just did a whole bunch of different podcasts. Michael Moore's books, Rosemary Gladstar books, Susan Weed, amazing herbalists, modern herbalists that have some great information about different herbs and plants. And I would probably start there and just go on that journey of just diving in and trying to get some credible information. If you want to explore making your own plant medicine, Mountain Rose Herbs, based out of Eugene, Oregon, great place to buy different medicinal herbs if you want to start doing your own home medicine making and kind of diving down the path that I did.
Awesome. Awesome. There's a great start for people. And so if you guys make sure you heard that, if you're in Southern Oregon, you got a location in Gold Hill and Ashland. You said sungodmedicinals.com was it? Or
Yeah, sungodmedicinals.com is the name of our our manufacturing company, and Brie's Botanicals.com is to learn more information about our stores.
awesome. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you, Brie, hopping on here today and talking a little bit. I know we were going to focus a little bit more on the store. We broke a little bit on the manufacturing. We're going to have you on here again to talk a little bit more about these herbs and blends you guys have been working on, and
Perfect.
kind of the origin on that, because I just think it's a little bit different conversation that I'm also excited to have. So we'll have Brie back here in the future. Was there anything else you'd like to plug, or that people need to know about Brie's Botanicals for the time being? I know we covered quite a bit of topics in a short amount of time.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to thank you for having me and just, your listeners and the people watching your show just realize, we are at a time of change and people are afraid and just living with integrity and just believing in what we're doing and no matter what it is that, right? But especially with cannabis is that we are good people. We're not bad people. Our friends and family are good people. We're not bad people because we embrace plant medicine and sharing that with people as you feel comfortable coming out of the closet and um, just not being afraid, but we need to affect change at the state and bureaucratic level. We need legalization at the federal level. The discrimination that we've faced in, banking, safe banking, had an employee's husband get turned down for a job because she worked for me. It's,
Wow.
it's still a shame that we're doing it legally here in Oregon. We're out of the closet as a team, that our employees get turned down for housing or jobs or other things. So just everybody living with integrity and just voting with our dollars. And, I think that that's important.
Mic drop. Gave you a moment to just shamelessly plug the company, and you're like talking about world peace and making it a better earth. I love it. I love it, man.
Well, you just got to do what you believe in, and that's what I've been doing. It's giving a platform and a place for people that need this to have a safe place to go, and to get quality products without pesticides or other fentanyl laced whatever off of the streets, and really embracing a good quality product and fighting for that in your communities as well. It doesn't have to be bad or evil; it can be good, and we can make it that way.
Awesome. That is beautifully spoken. Beautifully spoken. So I really
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on here today. Again, this is Brie Malarkey, founder and CEO of Brie's Botanicals, Sun God Medicinals. And what was the last company? I can't remember. It was
Yeah, I didn't name it with thinking it would be a brand way back in the day. Suna Raw Acres is
Sunera.
the
There we go.
farm. Yeah.
So full-time entrepreneur, multiple verticals around plants and alternative medicine, health and wellness. Really appreciate you again hopping on here, Brie, on a Sunday, and we'll have you on here again. This is the North American Weed Tour Podcast, episode 61. We will catch you guys next time.